Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Hey, my love. Welcome back to the Gemma Hanley podcast. It's potty time. And we're back to a single episode this week. You've just got me, and I am fresh off the plane from Melbourne and having lots of how fucking good is life moments today and the couple of days preceding. And what I love most about this is they are the tiniest little things. Yeah, they're not the, oh my gosh, I've been working towards this for years or like even a month, and this is a massive milestone and it's a goal that's written down in my journal and now it's here. And so now life is just so fucking good. It's been like the micro moments of just incidental, unplanned experiences that have me just bursting with appreciation and a feeling of alignment. Experiencing the feeling of life as opposed to a list of achievements. And so I can give you a couple of examples. Like one was, I was at a wedding yesterday, actually. It was one of the reasons I went back to Melbourne. One of my beautiful girlfriends had the most stunning celebration of her most gorgeous love story. And that was so much fun to be a part of. And I was sitting at the table speaking to a woman that I just met, and she was asking me about where I lived, and she knew of a suburb a little south of me called Majimba. And so we're talking about where that was in reference to where I live on the sunny coast. And as I was explaining that to her, it was visually taking me back into my everyday lifestyle when I'm back here at home. And I just had this moment, and I even voiced it to her where I said, oh my gosh, you're making me miss my home. I just love where I live so much. And again, it was just like, oh, I just love the organic grocer that I go to down the street in that direction, and the beaches and the warmth and nothing enormous. Having a home to come back to that feels so good and feels so right for now. And then I just went and got myself set up with some groceries after jumping off the plane and before sitting down here to record with you. And pulled into the garage. And as I was pulling my garage door down, one of the neighbors popped out and was like, hey, did you notice your downpipe fell last week? And we had of 12, maybe 12 consecutive days, we'd have 10 days that had just rained non-stop. And obviously it was a little bit too much for my downpipe. And I hadn't noticed. I'd noticed that the water was sounding a lot louder because it was no longer going down a pipe. And he just shared with me, I've contacted the landlord, and I was like, oh, where's the pipe? He's like, oh, don't worry, I got rid of it. And then the neighbor next door pops out and he's like, yeah, it was so loud. I was worried. And, I just popped my head around to check. And then my neighbor across the driveway was like, hey, I've got that. I bought a light home from work because he noticed the other day that one of my tail lights is out on my car. He's like, when you've got a second tomorrow, I'll replace it for you. And just this feeling of, such easy community and connection and like love, but just shared experience, which is one of my highest values, that has so easily formed around me when I've done all the work over the years to become available for that and become so clear on how I want community and social interactions and connection to look in my life. And that's just like such a small example. But also like very much feeds into this conversation we're going to have in this episode. And so just wanted to share that I'm sure that for more than one of you listening to me speak about this will prompt and maybe bring to life something within you in terms of how you want the small moments that have you feeling like, oh my gosh, life is so great. Life is so amazing. How that would feel for you or what you want that to look like for you. Because it very, 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 very much feeds in to this conversation that I'm bringing to the potty today. So let's get into that, which is around depression, feeling numb, feeling uninspired, feeling disconnected, feeling hopeless, feeling like you're in a dark hole. And I'm not talking about a day or a couple of days. I'm talking about those seasons of life or those experiences where it feels ongoing and it feels like, to an extent, yeah, I'm saying it feels like, doesn't mean it's factually true, but it feels like no matter what you try, nothing is shifting and nothing is changing. And, often that has you looking backwards to a time where maybe you felt more alive or things felt more enjoyable. Or maybe they didn't, but it was so long ago that you've forgotten how hard it was. And you're maybe looking back with these rose-colored glasses and aspiring to, or even having this feeling of longing or craving to go back to that time where life felt, inverted commas, easier. Because there must have been something that was going well or was happening differently then compared to now, because now feels worse, now feels harder, now feels darker, now feels more challenging. That's who this conversation is for today. And it's also for the woman who is not only experiencing that, but is unquestionably wanting to step into her power, into self-leadership, into ownership of what it looks like and what it takes to shift these seasons or experiences in life. This conversation that I'm bringing to the podcast today is really going to piss off any woman who is devoted to protecting her position of remaining stuck, right? Who becomes offended when she's presented with potential solutions or alternative perspectives. It's really going to piss off a woman who is really good at keeping a closed mind. She's really good at black and white thinking. She's really good at knowing all of the reasons why, all of the excuses why nothing can change for her. She's destined to remain depressed. Life will always be more difficult for her than other people. It doesn't matter what she tries, nothing works. And she really needs to remain right about all those things and right about how there's no solutions for her, because the thought of taking ownership or stepping into her power and taking the driver's seat in her life just feels, when we're really honest about it, deeply uncomfortable and outrageously inconvenient and so difficult, and like something that is so far-fetched and not possible for her that she's not even willing to try it on, to little by little discover that, oh yeah, a life of fulfillment, a life of calm, a life of feeling at peace with who you are, a life of feeling capable and that you can create whatever you want is not only available for her, it's available for every single one of us. And so proceed with caution, my love, to listening to this episode, because if you are that woman that is not ready for that and you also don't feel like being pissed off, stop listening. I'm not here to speak to you. However, if you're a woman like this client, so this topic is coming from a real live coaching conversation and question that I had from a client inside Reveal and Rise, recently over the last couple of weeks where she came and she just said, I'm feeling so depressed. I'm feeling so numb. I'm feeling disconnected. There's this feeling of hopelessness, and I want some help with what I can do about that, where that's coming from, how to change that. And she was being fucking serious when she asked for that help. She was not showing up and asking for help and then saying, oh, but I won't do XYZ. Yeah. So if that's the solution, find a different one for me because I won't do that. And you might have heard me talk about this on the podcast before as almost like in Australia for a while. It probably still exists, but I don't really go to shopping centers anymore. There was this store where you could build your own bear, like a teddy bear, like a toy. And so I'm guessing you could like pick what color, like the fur on the teddy bear was. You could probably pick what type of stuffing you wanted to put in it. You could pick what color eyes, maybe a different bow. Does it wear a hat? Does it have socks? Et cetera, et cetera. And some of what I see when women are approaching their inner work is that they think it should be able to be a build your own bear experience where you're like, no, I definitely don't want a light brown bear. I only want the dark brown bear. And absolutely not I will not have a spotted bow tie on my bear. I will only have a gold sparkly bow tie on my bear. And, with healing and growth and progressing the inner work with our mindset and our nervous system, that's not how it fucking works, right? It will challenge us. It will require us to look at things we would rather sweep under a rug and have become really good at sweeping under a rug if we have pain in our life. Yeah. And so this woman, she came to the Reveal and Rise coaching call and she was not looking for the build your own bear experience. She had come to this place where she was ready and unquestionably ready to look at whatever she needed to look at to no longer feel this way. So that's the conversation that we dove into. And where I began with her is I shared how her current choices and behaviors and expression. Yeah. So our choices and behaviors make up our expression. It's how we're moving through the world. What is our attitude looking like? What values are we living through? Yeah. Because our values are not something necessarily that we like. It's something that works for us, even if we don't like how we're getting to a result or how we're getting to an outcome. And so when I talk about a woman's behaviors, choices, expression, I'm not talking about their worth, their intellect, whether they're good or bad as a person. What we're talking about is we're actually taking the data that is being outputted as information that we can look at and ask, separate to the worth and value of this incredible woman, what is this showing us? Yeah. And so some of the criteria or like the tick boxes that must be present for depression and a feeling of numbness and hopelessness to be taking place that we discussed is that you must be living life according to somebody else's rules, somebody else's opinions, somebody else's values instead of your own. Yeah. If you want to get to the result, like we're just going to step out of any attachment to the experience of depression. And if we even think about it as an equation, if you want to get to the end of an equation that equals depression and numbness, something that must go in that equation is living life according to other people's opinions, ideas, rules, values. Yeah. What they think, what works for them, what pleases them, instead of what's true, real, and authentic to you. That must be playing out. Something else that must go into that equation so that we can get the result of depression and numbness is there must be this underlying belief that is playing out of it's not possible for me. Yeah. And so that could be as generalized as happiness is not possible for me. Vibrant, thriving health is not possible for me. Financial freedom and financial ease is not possible for me. A loving relationship where I can speak my needs, where I can freely express, where I can ask for what I want, where my boundaries are respected, that's not possible for me. Starting a business, changing career, moving to a different location, etc., etc., etc. Insert here. It's not possible for me. So it can be as, generalized as being happy, feeling calm, being at peace, feeling deeply accepting of the person that I am is not possible for me. Or it could be around something really specific as well. Yeah. That's something else that needs to go into that equation. And a third thing that we talked about is absolutely being in the equation that gets the result of depression or numbness is desiring for another person or another thing to solve your problems for you. Yeah. So it's this like longing or desire or daydreaming or craving, and it could be so subtle or it could be so obvious of, so, the subtle language could just be like, oh, I really wish I didn't have to deal with this. Yeah. Or it could be as obvious as, I shouldn't have to deal with this. They need to change. Why can't someone fix this for me? I shouldn't have to have this problem. Yeah, the I shouldn't have to have this problem is a perfect example of the build your own bear experience. Like, I shouldn't have to have the spotted bow tie on my bear. And so, yeah, it's this a lot of energy and thoughts and mindset and attitude and focus in the direction of, oh, imagine I didn't have to deal with this, or I wish this just wasn't on my path right now, or can't somebody else just come and save me, or can't somebody help me, or doesn't somebody else have my answers? Can't somebody else tell me what to do? All of that, my love, fits into this category of desiring for another person or thing to solve your pain and solve your problems for you, which leaves you in a very disempowered, disassociated, detached from reality state. And when we're disempowered, disassociated, and detached from reality, we can't actively participate in it, which means we also can't change it, which means we begin feeling extremely hopeless and very depressed. And a coping mechanism that pops up is the numbness around it as well. So this is so painful that I will just feel nothing. I'll just feel indifferent. I won't feel excited and lit up and enthused or inspired, but I also won't feel the fear, the pain, the suffering, the depression, the guilt, the embarrassment, the shame, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So these are three key things that are playing out when depression or numbness is present. And so if you are experiencing these states, I'm going to invite you to get really curious, like super curious and creative with your thinking about where this might be true for you. And that's a question you could take away is, where might this be true for me? Or where might I be ignoring that this is true for me? Right? That's when we really begin to empower ourselves because we're taking ownership. We're opening up the facts of reality instead of living in this little false narrative where we're protecting ourselves by sweeping certain things under the rug or putting our blinkers on or pretending that certain facts are not part of our reality. Yeah. Which means we can't respond to it. We can't respond to what we're not being real with. So if you're ready to step into the driver's seat and you're feeling perplexed about, where this pain and suffering is coming from, that is a great question to journal on. And, as I was speaking with this client of mine, the conversation actually started a week prior on our coaching call, where she brought to the session the topic of chronic pain. And we started exploring that. And, it was a big conversation. I asked her lots of different questions. I asked her, and there were two different types of chronic pain that were playing out. And I asked her about when they started, and one was 15 years ago and one was 12 months ago. And I asked her different questions to uncover what was happening in her life at that time. And then I took some of her language around what was happening in her life at that time, and I gave her questions to connect with her subconscious on. So our conscious is, I like to call that upstairs. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me pointing, hands moving around my head. Upstairs is like shoulders up, right? So it's our intellectual, sense making, logical, intellectual, putting things in a box, categorizing things, yeah, wanting to make sense of things. And it's limited, that function within us, right? But it feeds our need for certainty. It feeds our need for knowing, like how things work, what things mean, where pieces fit, right? But because it's limited, it misses important information. And so our subconscious is from the shoulders down. I often call this downstairs, upstairs, downstairs. And our subconscious holds an imprint and a memory of every single experience we've ever had in this lifetime and before, depending on what you believe in, that we don't have conscious, logical, intellectual access to 24/7. Because if we did, we would go a little bit crazy. The brain cannot cope with that amount of information, but it's stored in the body and it can be called upon. And the greater the connection, the greater the quality of the connection you have with your inner self, with your intuition, with your heart, with the real you, and that you foster that and you build that and you prioritize that with different practices and rituals. It might look like journaling. It might look like intuitive dance. It might look like inner child work. It might look like mirror work. It might look like guided practices, like guided audio practices that all my clients inside Reveal and Rise have. And everything I'm mentioning are techniques that I teach. And so the greater the quality of connection you have with your inner world, with your heart, with your soul, with your body, the greater the quality of information you're able to call forward from your subconscious that helps you to understand any painful emotions, any physical symptoms, any spiraling thoughts, which I would say fits into more of the pain category of life. But also there is so much intelligence and wisdom held in the subconscious, which is stored in the body, in the soul, around pleasure. What lights you up inside? What is most aligned for you? What has you feeling inspired? What is your purpose for being here? It holds both, and these work together. And so when we're feeling perplexed or confused by an experience like depression, numbness, feeling like something isn't possible for us, or chronic pain or symptoms, we can actually connect with our subconscious and call on the information and ask for that to be shown to us so that it becomes within our conscious awareness. We become intellectually aware of it, and then we have that information to use in the healing of our nervous system and in the improvement of our mindset. And once we work with that and heal that, it no longer creates the chaos of dis-ease, dysfunction, disharmony in the body anymore, because its purpose for creating pain was to get our attention so that we could heal something that is blocking us from expressing as more of our true self, more as the real you. And so when that message has been heard and it's been respected and honored and followed through on, it doesn't have a purpose anymore. It releases. So to circle back, because this woman's inside Reveal and Rise, she's very well practiced at this. She has access to the guided practices that teach her how to connect with her subconscious as well. And so what I did is I created some questions for her to add into that into her mix that were very specific to her history around the chronic pain that she was experiencing. And some of what that looked like, a couple of the questions I'll share with you. So one of the questions I got her to ask her subconscious for 7 days straight was, where am I denying myself from being me? Because a theme that I was able to uncover with her from where this chronic pain started was that she was having experiences where she was either like quite directly being told or shown that it wasn't okay for her to be who she is. Yeah, that was being shut down, it was being minimized, it was being rejected, it was being picked apart. Or she was feeling like by society's standards or her social setting standards that these parts of her wouldn't be accepted. So she wasn't bringing them forward. She was suppressing them, pushing them down, hiding them. And essentially when we do that, my love, what we're saying to ourselves is it's not okay to be you. It's not safe to be you. It's not good enough to be you. These parts are okay. They're shiny. They're advantageous. They're worthy of celebration. Let's just push them forward. And often it is, patterns of perfectionism, achieving, and our qualities that we feel really strong in, right? Like maybe we're really witty and we're great at banter and we're hilarious. And so that's the side we always push forward, but we don't let anybody see our more serious or our more wise or our more vulnerable side, because we don't feel that would be acceptable because, one, we've become known as the funny person, but also maybe because we've been leading with our hilarious side or our hilarious quality, we have created only connections that have the maturity or the emotional intelligence to be lighthearted all the time, right? They don't know how to hold space for a more serious conversation. They don't know how to respond or support you if you are to be more vulnerable or to share more of what's alive for you. Or if you were to allow more of your wisdom or your intelligence or celebrate yourself in something you're really proud of, they might feel really intimidated by that and shut that down or make a joke about it. So there's some examples of like some themes that can be happening. And then the second question I asked her to take away and to practice with her somatic practices, because this is where it's so important to, yes, and the upstairs I was talking about before it's like, we could call that the mindset component, right? Where we are intellectually, logically, strategically, quite, what's the word I want to use? Like almost, this isn't a word, educationally, but like, it's like almost doing a task to shift our perspective, or like doing a task to create a new attitude or a reframe around something, which is great and really important, but only at most 50% of healing limiting beliefs, past traumas, past significant emotional events that are still expressing through the nervous system as a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response to current day events. And so the somatic approach, which works with the nervous system, which is being triggered by whatever pattern is in the subconscious, that is incredibly important work. And that's what this homework, we could call it, that I gave this client is about. And that's what I'm talking about with the subconscious when I say downstairs and in the body. And so the second question was, where in your life right now are you not wanting to be in something or to be doing something, but not feeling strong enough to leave? So where in your life are you feeling like something is not for you, but you keep doing it anyway? Yeah. And so this most recent call, where we were exploring depression and numbness and feeling uninspired and disconnected and in a dark black hole, was based, we were able to draw on all of the answers that she'd gotten from 7 days of asking her inner world and her subconscious these questions. And her answers were incredible, because what her answers did is revealed to me exactly where and what was causing this season and this experience of feeling depressed. And one of the things I got to share with her when she told me everything her subconscious had given her was, my love, you are meant to feel depressed right now. You are meant to feel numb right now. You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. There is currently just an experience where you are living so um, disconnected or inactive around the things that are most important to you, that your body wants you to know about that. Yeah. And one of the things that we uncovered is that there's a key area of her lifestyle at the moment that forms part of her everyday life that has really been shied away from, and has had some of that energy of like, oh, I wish like somebody else could just take care of these things, or it could just like sort itself out. And I didn't have to be the really active, um, ownership taking, self-led participant in moving through these hard steps that will get me exactly what I want. And so when we are resisting or almost like, pussyfooting around or like toe dipping, like we step in a bit, or we might take like 2 steps forward, but 5 steps backwards, 100% after an amount of time, if that's how we're living our life around something that's actually important for us to lean into and progress, and it's not happening, 100% the body is going to start speaking to us about that and say, hey, there is so much more for you. You are so brilliant. You are so capable. You are so intelligent. You are so stunningly beautiful. You are so freaking amazing. There is so much more to life for you that we're not going to let you hang around here in this waiting zone, in this suppression zone, in this pushing things down and wishing that you're someone that you're not. And that's what painful emotions, physical symptoms, a spiraling mind is there to do. It's there to wake us up and say, hey, this is not working. This current approach is not working. And so, because together we'd gathered all of this information and I'd given her the implementation task and implementation steps the week before with the very specific questions based on her very specific history. And then she was able to bring, her very specific subconscious answers, and we could go deeper into it. I could very clearly reflect back to her, it actually makes perfect sense that you're feeling depressed and numb right now. Like the equation is playing out absolutely perfectly. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You're just getting the result that churns out at the end of an equation when we suppress and deny the truth of who we are, the real you. And it's not until we get very, very specific about where we're doing that and how we're doing that and where it's showing up, which again can be so subtle. Because part of the reason why we're not progressing it is we're shit scared a lot of the time. So without even noticing, and as a subconscious automated protective mechanism, these things are being swept under the rug. The blinkers are being put on. And I'm not suggesting you're like, okay, where are the things I need to collect today and just shove back under that rug? And where are my favorite pair of blinkers? Because I need to get them on pronto. That's actually not how the subconscious works. It's out of our conscious awareness. We're not intellectually, logically aware of it, right? Because I know if you've been listening to this podcast or if you've been following my work for quite some time, I attract women that want to fucking know what is up. Like, why am I feeling stuck? Why am I procrastinating? Why is self-sabotage showing up? Why do I feel magnetically drawn in the opposite direction of where I want to go? Why is this so hard for me? Why am I trying so many different things? Why have I poured my heart and soul and I've done therapy and I've done yoga and I've done meditation and I've done the affirmations and, I've done all of these things. Why am I still feeling this way? Why am I not progressing forwards in a way that actually feels sustainable and feels like more than just like a bit of a sugar high or a short-term win that then, not progresses, um, whatever the word is that's the opposite to progress, um, goes backwards, falls away, doesn't stick, does not stick. And so when I say that, it can sound really offensive, right? Like you're meant to be depressed right now. You're meant to be numb right now. But in my world, and with how deeply supported my clients are, and this woman sitting there, on the other end of this call inside Reveal and Rise, she felt relief. She felt empowered. She felt clear on why the fuck she was in this situation and what she can do about it, right? Because when you don't know that there are certain things that need to be happening to feel depressed and numb, you're left with assuming that there's something wrong with you, that you are broken, especially if you are one of those women that feels like they're trying everything and nothing works. And so that's the main reason I really wanted to bring this conversation, because I really wanted to shine a light and highlight the fact that when we're experiencing these states of depression, numbness, hopelessness, feeling uninspired, disengaged, unenthusiastic, like nothing's changing, it's not by mistake, my love. It is there because it's saying, please pay attention. Please look inward. Please look at where you're living in a way that is true to other people and pleases and impresses other people, but actually is not right for you. And maybe you're wanting and wishing it was right for you, but when you're honest with yourself, it's not, right? And that was something that came up in this client session too. She said, yeah, I can actually see where I've been saying to myself, oh, I wish I was a person that XYZ. I wish I was someone that wanted to do this. I wish I was someone that wanted to do that. I wish I was someone that didn't care about this. And each time she finished those sentences, it was an example of her saying, I wish I wasn't me. I wish I was more like other people. I wish I could just conform. I wish I didn't have my own opinions. I wish I didn't have my own heart so strongly speaking to me about what my real authentic path is. Yeah. And loneliness was a key thing that came up in this conversation too. And so what we got to talk about and what she got to learn is that the deepest, most painful version of loneliness is when we reject and abandon ourselves as who we are. So when we're saying, some of us is welcome, but some of us is not. Or when we're saying, why can't we just be more like that? Or why can't I be someone that X, Y, Z's? Yeah. And the most powerful thing about this style of coaching and these tasks that I gave this client is what she is getting to realize is that her answers, and I'm telling you this, my love, because it is 100% true for you too. Her answers are already within herself. The only missing piece is the skill set and the resources for her to know how to go about finding those. For her to have me to bounce that off as a sounding board and to guide her and lead her. And for her to be witnessing every single day of the week, other women doing the same thing, asking questions she might not have thought of yet, or that affirm something that she's heard but didn't understand. And now she's heard it again from like a different perspective or the context of somebody else's question and what they're working through. And it's landing more and more and more deeply. And then, from here and this conversation, I was able to give her more implementation tasks that were very individualized and personalized for her. And so the biggest takeaway that I would love you to pop in your pocket and carry alongside you from this conversation is that painful emotional states like depression, like numbness, they are there speaking to you. Yeah. And there are certain things that must be happening for them to be present. And when we get curious about what your individual expression right now is of those certain tick boxes or criteria that are going into the equation that churns out depression, You get new data, you get new information that you can work with and that reveals exactly what your next steps are. And all of this fucking intelligence, this brilliance is already inside of you. And it is not your fault if you don't know how to find that and activate that. I did not know that. I experienced depression for a really, really long time. Like I can remember being depressed as a 5-year-old. And I can also remember that it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that began to shift. And that's why I'm so passionate about this conversation. And it can feel intense and it can feel really discombobulating, maybe even offensive, far-fetched, maybe even this concept could be feeling really overwhelming as well, right? Because it's not mainstream and it's not talked about a lot, but it's extremely empowering. That covers everything I wanted to bring to this conversation. If you have some questions around this, please bring them to me. The best place to do that is on Instagram. I reply to all my DMs personally there. And yeah, I'd love to get into this conversation a little bit. I shared, quite a few of the practical bits and pieces in this podcast episode. So go back and listen to it if you need to. So you can write down maybe some of those questions and if you might not know how to do that at a subconscious level, but maybe, even journaling with your conscious mind could be useful to begin just loosening the grip on this idea that, when life isn't feeling good, when we're feeling depressed, when we're feeling flat, numb, to loosen the grip on this false idea, this mistruth that means there's something wrong with you. Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.